uncertainty is not a bad thing. It's all about the perspective.
What you give now, you won't receive now, but you will receive in another form later in years, maybe, but
okay, this venture didn't turn out well. I'm not going to give up now. Then you just, okay, what can you learn? And then you move on to the next one, right? So
everything's a lesson. Put things in perspective, the bigger picture, like
the uncertainty that you mentioned. A lot of people at the start would see that as something to fear because I've, quit my job. What's happening next? It's normal for families to worry, right? Because they don't know. But then I feel like once you are comfortable with that uncertainty, then it turns into, like you said, you started the business. You didn't know you were going to start working with the Dubai market. So that uncertainty has given you actually a lot of cadeau, a lot of like gifts you couldn't have ever, I guess, anticipated before. So uncertainty is not a bad thing. It's all about the perspective to that uncertainty. And it's also, I guess, a coincidence that or maybe not a coincidence, kismet, that you mentioned Dubai, because we're heading there in a few days as well. So I'm curious a little bit about your, how that came about as well because you said Portugal and Spain. Yeah. That makes sense because you were in Spain.
Yeah.
How did this whole Dubai venture start?
So actually Dubai came through a Pakistani prospect, who wanted to sell his property in Pakistan and wanted another investment. The thing is, Europe is not that attractive was not attractive for him because I'm not going to go too deep inside, but there's two decisions that come whether you want to invest in Europe or a place like Dubai. Dubai is more for people who are looking purely for investment. I don't want to live there. I just want something, have passive income. Europe is more someone who wants to go there for the lifestyle, who are ready to move, for example, who want to retire, or it's still a good investment, but you can't compare investing in Dubai or in Europe, tax-wise and all this. So I discovered that in Pakistan, first of all, the location, Dubai is much more close to Pakistan than Europe. And also for a tax reason, people are more in the Dubai market. And this prospect I had, basically there's a problem in Pakistan. People cannot move a certain amount of money per year per citizen. If I'm updated correctly, it's around 100K pounds, euro, dollars per citizen per year. So it's difficult to make an investment. First of all, you have to take the money out of the country. So through a partner I have, we facilitate this process. Well, of course, it has to be legit money. Everything has to be taxed, filled, and everything. But there was a way to help people from Pakistan to move out country, to move the money. And my contact told me, it's an amazing tool you have, an amazing partner you have to take the money out. But you have to understand that for Pakistani people, Europe is not that attractive. So you should look at markets like Dubai. And at that point, I was talking to a Belgian contact I had, one of my partners today, who actually is living in Dubai and who does like me, but in Dubai. And so he speaks mainly French, but through him, I could have implemented one new partner in Dubai. Actually, this summer on a boat in Formentera, I met a French woman who does also exactly the same as I do, but only for French people in Dubai too. She lives there. So momentum came. Momentum I had, and to be honest, this prospect gave me the idea, but I didn't even end up working with him at the end. So I arranged all the partners for him, all the structure to make this process possible. I didn't end up working with him, but the takeaway of this is now I have all the structure in place for people in Pakistan. So on the moment I didn't get paid for it, but the value, the contacts I made has much bigger value. So that's how Dubai came.
Yeah, I mean, it relates back to what we said about the value coming from the business isn't necessarily just from that first payment, but that really epitomizes the expression, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Because if you didn't go through that process with this initial partner, then you wouldn't be doing the work now. So really nice to see the connections and all of these things of, again, you said you don't consider yourself French or Pakistani, but there's a combination of that initial guy was Belgian, did you say?
Yeah.
So then you got the French connection there and then the Pakistani connection. Everything just seems to like go, but it doesn't fall out of the air. This becomes from you've been given these cards, let's say, in your life, and you've played them in these different ways, right? Through the, I guess, kind of serendipity, but also you had to go out there and work for that and build your network yourself.
Yeah, and also the creating momentum, I believe it's a big thing, like that's why also I love the sentence you have to give to receive, because it's literally this, like what you give now, you won't receive now, but you will receive in another form later in years, maybe, but everything really happens for a reason, the people you meet, but it's true that you have to put yourself there, for example, this podcast, I could have, let's do it. Maybe we can do it online, but I didn't. To be honest, I didn't even ask you if we could do it online because I didn't want to do it. I really wanted this experience, an exchange, and I think it would have not have the same value. Even though I could have come not knowing you, maybe sometimes I travel for some things and the people saw me dream, so I thought I was going to come in this place and I discovered that it's not at all what I was expecting. But I think you have to put yourself in the places to create momentum and attract things, Of course, we all start from different starting points of life. I don't come from a wealthy place, but I never needed nothing in my life too, so I know which card I have. I know from which standpoint of life I started in. I'm very grateful, I got a good education. I got always food on the table, all this, I also know for the vision and goals I have for my own life, I have to go in places where my starting point never went to, I think showing up is one of the biggest, the biggest momentum creating aspect. Like you have to show up, like you can't, you have to take this flight, you have to take the risk of moving in this new country, to learn a new skill, just to give you a concrete example that's going to happen literally next week for me. I've been investing in a lot of, in the crypto space and a lot of things. I always had a reticence regarding trading, never something I wanted to do. But I knew it's a skill that that is important. And actually, I'm starting a new training Wednesday next week with one of my mentors. Of course, I pay him and everything because I know this skill, even though I have so much blockage in my head, but I feel it, in the coming months, years will be something very good to have, So even though I'm not looking forward to it too much. I'm scared, but I know it's something that will bring a lot of value for me.
Based on these conversations, a lot of people typically want to share the good times of, I got this client. This is how I did this. This is how I did that. But inevitably, any business, anything in life, I'm sure there are times, like you said, where you think something's going to go well and then in the end it doesn't. But then you just keep going and you don't really focus on the okay, this venture didn't turn out well. I'm not going to give up now. Then you just, okay, what can you learn? And then you move on to the next one, right? So
everything's a lesson. Put things in perspective, the bigger picture, like, okay, I didn't win. I didn't have what I wanted, but what look for the things you gain, like, I gained, I went in this new place. I met these new people. I would have never met this new guy if I would have never had this way of thinking if I didn't go through this experience, like everything happens for a reason, but also everything as a conclusion you can take off?